Atla Palani Nest Tender versus Greven Predator Captain, Arcades the Strategist, and Brago King Eternal. We are keeping this. I very much like Mirri's Guile on turn 1. And then we've got nothing else in hand, but hopefully we can get something going out of Mirri's Guile. Alright, well we've got a couple of fetches at least. Going to have to crack one of these to get the untapped green mana. And we'll just grab ourselves a basic forest here, so that we can maybe have Cinderglade come in untapped. Usually want to hold on to the fetches for as long as possible, so that if we don't like any of the cards on top, we can shuffle those away. But we've got a couple of fetches in hand, so that shouldn't be too much of an issue for us. Sunscape Familiar for Arcades, the first defender of the game, a 0/3. Green and blue spells cost 1 less to cast. That is perfect in Arcades. I've never actually looked at the cards for an Arcades list, and that is a perfect one for them. Rakdos Signet coming into play for Greven, so managing to get their ramp going. Let's look at the top 3 here and see if we can spot anything we like. Heroic Intervention's always good to get into, as is Elemental Bond. I think we go for the Elemental Bond here. Oh, and definitely, that might be a pivotal mistake, that. Hopefully we don't like everything that's on top of our library with Mirri's Guile next turn. You've got to be very careful with your land drops. We have nothing to do this turn, so I should have gotten the tap land out of the way in Cinderglade. Because now the problem is, if I go for Mirari's Wake next turn and I like 2 or 3 cards that are on top of the library and I want to leave them there, it means that I can't crack either of these fetches. Now, it's not necessarily the end of the world if we just play out a tap land and don't get the Elemental Bond into play, but it's much better if we just play the tap land on turn 2 and then go for the Elemental Bond on turn 3. So that's a mistake on my part. The second defender for Arcades coming down. When it enters, search for a basic land or gate, reveal it, and put it into your hand. They went for a basic island. Demonic Tutor for Greven. Hopefully that's just grabbing a land, because their colours aren't the best currently. But if they did go for a land, it wasn't a coloured source. Laid down an Ancient Tomb. They want to lose as much life as possible, so Ancient Tomb should help them there. Alright, now what have we got? I think I would actually prefer to get down the Talisman here, so let's keep the plains on top. And we can get down that tap land. Yeah, that actually is a happy accident there. We'll pretend to hold up Swords to Plowshares, just in case that Greven wants to come in swinging at us. A Mana War for Brago, probably bouncing the Sunscape Familiar. Brago's another one that I've been meaning to build for a while. But I think it's one of those commanders that people will target, not necessarily with Greven and Atla at the table, but Brago is a well-known, powerful commander, so it might get you targeted more than you'd like. And for some reason, the Brago player decided to just go AFK. They didn't disconnect or anything. They just played the Mana War, and that was the end of that. So we've just had to wait for the inactivity timer to kick them out of the game. We could have ejected him, but decided to give him the benefit of the doubt and give him the chance to come back. But this is one of the many trials that you have of trying to get gameplay videos on Magic Online. Now Arcades has come into play and can attack in with these things, going in at Greven. The more damage we can put on Greven, the better, because if they lose a bunch of life, then that's less life that they can lose while Greven's in play. And there we go, Greven eventually deciding to show up. So I have now been sat here for about, how long? 20 minutes? And pretty much nothing has happened. Greven deciding to play their commander. And we've got Nature's Law and a land on top. I think we just go for Nature's Law. And then we'll be able to play a land and go for Elemental Bond. So yeah, we'll do that. Grab a white land in Savannah. Play the Elemental Bond as well as a fetch. And we'll not crack the fetch. We'll wait and see what we see on Mirri's Guile first. And this is a problem that I have in games like this. When I'm just sat here staring at a blank screen and not doing anything whilst I wait for my opponents to either time out or come back from being AFK, my brain kind of switches off, and then I find it very difficult to get back into the rhythm of thinking tactically about what I want to do and cards I'm hoping to draw into and things like that. And then I'll just end up making silly mistakes. So, see what's going on here. Our opponent deciding to swing in at us with everything. Shalai has also come down for Arcades, by the way. And now an Eldrazi Obligator for the Greven player. When you cast this spell, you can pay 2. If you do, you gain control of a creature and untap it. It gains haste until the end of the turn. This is just a 3/1 devoid haste creature. Alright, and they were looking to gain control of the Shalai, but the Arcades has cast Mizium Skin, giving that hexproof. And the Greven player now swinging in at us with Greven, not swinging in with the Eldrazi Obligator though. And they decided to sacrifice the Phyrexian Obligator as well, so they would draw... How many cards do they draw? Equal to its power. And they lost 3 life as well. Now we've got a Goring Ceratops on top and an Ashnod's Altar. I think maybe we take a turn off and get down the Resurgent. We've got 2, 4, 6 and 7 mana. Let's just get into the Windswept Heath here. We're going to take a lot of damage is the only problem. That's 5, 10, 14. Yeah, we might just have to play the Polyraptor instead, actually. Shuffling up with Arid Mesa, and we will get a basic Plains into play. Then play the Polyraptor. And this is what I was talking about. With my brain switching off, Polyraptor does not cost 6 mana, so we will not go for that. Let's go for Windswept Heath. And we'll have to get down the Resurgent instead, and hope that our opponents don't take us out of the game. But they most likely will. Wall of Frost for Arcades, a 0/7. That's a hell of a lot of damage that thing could deal. And whenever it blocks a creature, that creature is frozen. Then Shared Summons is search for 2 creatures. Now I would think the Arcades... Bear in mind I'm biased, but I would think the Arcades would actually want to go in at Greven because Greven can just pull a lot of damage out of nowhere. And yeah, that is what they're doing, knocking them down to 19. Like I said before, the Greven player, the less life they have, then the less life they have to lose, and therefore less life is buffing the Greven. But I'm sure there's lots of loops and combos you can get going with this creature. And it is something to be terrified of, I think. Then again, we are over here with a bunch of mana. Reanimating a Silent Arbiter. No more than 1 creature can attack each combat. And no more than 1 creature can block each combat. And that stops anyone from blocking the Greven because it has Menace. So that's a nice little combination of cards our opponent's got going. Now it's a case of if Greven wants to systematically take each of us out of the game, they might target us until we are knocked out and then go for Arcades. Our opponent's gone down to 11 life here, and they paid the Phyrexian mana into Molten Steel Dragon by the looks of it. Greven has now gone up to a 13/5. This thing has Phyrexian mana Fire Breathing, so they could put 8 life into that if they wanted to. And probably knock us out of the game with Greven. Yeah, looks like they're trying to get rid of us here. No, only buffing him up to 17 and then going in at Arcades, so not getting rid of us. Then deciding to sacrifice the Molten Steel Dragon. And this will be 21 points of commander damage going on to Arcades. They can't block because of the Silent Arbiter. So, unfortunately, yeah, our opponent will soon realise that they are out here. And this is exactly what I was talking about. Little combinations of cards like that I'm not privy to yet because I haven't looked at building this commander. Molten Steel Dragon seems like an all-star in this deck because you could pour as much life as you like into Greven then. And then the Silent Arbiter, keeping our opponents from blocking. But Arcades frantically trying to... yeah, bit of denial going on here. It does bring up at the bottom here telling you why you can't block. Our opponent mustn't have seen that. And then, what was that? Going for Cruel Feeding. Any number of target creatures you control gains lifelink until the end of the turn. So they were at 3 life, I think, and they jumped up to 25. Yeah, seeing a good Greven showing here. Luckily, we have Mirri's Guile, so we just need to see if we can... no, I don't know what we need to draw into, really. A board wipe would be nice. And Greven managing to stay in a bunch of cards because of the Molten Steel Dragon. I don't know how much power that had when they sacrificed it. But they're up to 7 cards now. Goring Ceratops on top is not going to be of much use to us. Lightning Greaves, I don't think that is either. How much mana do we have? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 11, 12, 13. That's a real shame that we can't get into both the Greaves and the 1000-year Elixir, because then we'd be able to throw out eggs to put in front of Greven. Elemental Bond does not trigger on our commander, does it? No, unfortunately not. Well, it's just a case of playing things out and seeing what we can draw into now. Let's shuffle everything up, play a Tiger, but we'll at least see some Greven action. But this has been far from a satisfying game. Draw a card from the Zendikar Resurgent. Okay, Thrashing Brontodon. That actually makes it so we can block if we get 2 creatures into play. Yeah, Cultivate is too late. Let's play the Thrashing Brontodon. Oh, Swords to Plowshares, that's a draw. So in that case, let's get down the Greaves. Yeah, let's get down the Greaves. Shuffling up and drawing some cards was the way to go, apparently. We'll put the Lightning Greaves on there. During our opponent's turn, we can tap down for 2 white. Swords to Plowshares on Greven. Sacrifice the Thrashing Brontodon to get rid of the Silent Arbiter. Now this triggers on attack, so at the beginning of combat we will do this. Lupine Prototype. It can't attack or block unless a player has no cards in hand. That's a 5/5 for 2 mana. That's just something for them to sacrifice by the looks of it. Seems pretty good for 2 mana. What's that big Mir as well that only costs, is it 2 mana? But it's got a lot of power and toughness. I think you need to pay for it with mana from creatures. So this is actually a much better creature to put in Greven. I'm learning things about Greven, if nothing else, this game. Going for a Fire Covenant onto the Thrashing Brontodon. So that is a good excuse for us to go for our Swords to Plowshares. See if our opponent wants to pay some life to gain more life here. A bit counterintuitive, doesn't really make much sense to do that. They'll just lose life to gain it straight back. And then with the floating mana, we will sacrifice the Thrashing Brontodon, get rid of the Silent Arbiter. And that's that little combination gotten rid of. So now we've got half a chance of blocking with egg tokens at least. Oh, but an Undying Evil. So that will bring this thing back with a plus counter on it. So we still need to deal with that, unfortunately. Got rid of our opponent's commander at least though, and we haven't seen any haste thus far. Let's try and have a look at what's in our opponent's graveyard, see if there's any haste in there. They've discarded My J Jin, however you say that. There's Combat Celebrant. Yeah, Cruel Feeding we've seen. Reanimate. Haven't seen any haste enablers yet, although I don't doubt they're in the deck. A Skull Clamp and a Rogue's Passage. Skull Clamp, I think. Then we will go for our commander, and that will draw us a card. Getting into the Rogue's Passage. Let's put the Greaves onto our commander. It doesn't look like they have any instant speed interaction because they are F6'd. So let's make an egg. We'll play the Skull Clamp. Play Cultivate just to shuffle things up a little bit. And then with the floating mana, we'll put a Clamp on the egg token. And draw a couple of cards. We'll also trigger Atla Palani. That gets us into Nesting Dragon. Couldn't have hoped for a better creature, really. That draws us a card. We get into Mirror Entity. Wow, we're really getting our egg game on here. Has anyone ever said that sentence before? Otepec Huntmaster can give dinosaurs haste. We've got Heroic Intervention as well. I say we go for a Strip Mine here. The Nesting Dragon will make an egg token. We can put a Clamp onto the Dragon Egg, a Dragon Egg which will create a dragon and a dinosaur somehow. Then we're going to have to let that floating mana go. Let's put the Greaves on the Nesting Dragon. And we will swing in with Nesting Dragon. That can go over our opponent's head. Eventually deciding to take the hit there. Yeah, there's a lot of slow play going on here. Let's put the Greaves back on to Atla Palani. And we're going to Strip Mine that Ancient Tomb so that our opponent has less mana to play with, but they've also got less life that they can lose for Greven as well. Cracking and Arid Mesa will lose them their first point of life. Really got our fingers crossed for no haste here. Just tapping out and getting their commander down again. And that is a 7-5 because our opponent has lost a couple of life this turn. Really need a means of dealing with this Silent Arbiter off the top. So let's see what we can get into off of the Mirri's Guile. That is a whole heap of nothing. There's Anointed Procession, Bellowing Igersaur. I think we just get into the Anointed Procession here. And we know one of the creatures that we're going to get into if we manage to get rid of an egg. Might have to go for Mirror Entity and kill off everything. We'll play a land first. Get the Rogue's Passage down. Oh, and definitely should have gone for Anointed Procession first. Yeah, immediately forgetting about that card. That's pretty bad. We'll get down the Anointed Procession now before I do that again. And now we will activate Atla Palani. And we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 eggs die. Actually, what we can do here is go for the Clamp on the Atla Palani eggs because they're only 0/1s. That's the problem with dragon eggs, is that they have more toughness, so you can't clamp them. We know what dinosaur we're coming into here. And that will draw us a card off of Elemental Bond. This thing has Enrage. It puts a plus counter on everything every time it's dealt damage, which we don't necessarily want currently. Oh, Zetalpa Primal Dawn. Yeah, problem is, are we going to survive until next turn? Can we hardcast Sakama? Looks like we can. So let's tap all of our mana. Let's put a Clamp onto this egg. We got into Ripjaw Raptor off the top, more card draw, and then we've drawn into some more stuff there. Let's get down this Zakama, Primal Calamity, and we will draw a card with Zendikar Resurgent for casting that, and draw another card from Elemental Bond, And because we cast Zakama, we will untap our lands, which is pretty good with the Zendikar Resurgent in play. Then we need to concentrate on getting rid of our opponent's stuff, so let's go for 3 damage onto Greven, and 3 damage onto Greven again. Then we will play the Goring Ceratops. Oh, and that gets us into Worldly Tutor, which might be good. And an Austere Command, which might also be helpful. Now I say we go for... Why don't we just try and go wide on our opponent, actually. I was thinking of Rogue's Passage onto Zakama, but we'll just get rid of the Silent Arbiter while we can. Destroy an artifact or enchantment. Get rid of that thing. And then, seeing as how I haven't left up green mana, I'll just play out the Mirror Entity. Draw another card. Smothering Tithe is not a card we need right now. Let's put a Clamp onto the Nesting Dragon. And then Haste onto Zakama. Actually, whenever this needs to attack to give double strike, doesn't it? So that's 10 from that. 6 here. And 6 here. Yeah, so in fact, we should go there, shouldn't we? Swing in there, there, and there. Our dinosaurs are given double strike. The Lupine prototype can't block. Oh, and it's actually other creatures you control gain double strike. So, yeah, I was making it so that we have exactly enough, but we're actually knocking our opponent down by way more than 22 now, because the Nesting Dragon itself has double strike. Just give our opponent the chance to take the damage. I don't really see what they're going to do with 0 mana and 4 cards in hand. Slaughter Pact, maybe? Well, it looks like my opponent has just decided to time out, like the petty individual that I'm sure they are. And a lot of the times I actually give people the benefit of the doubt and think, oh well, real life stuff, and maybe the computers crash, blah blah blah. And therefore it's amazing how many times people's computer crashes as they are about to lose the game. Very convenient. Was looking pretty sketchy there because that Greven player was really good, piloting a really good deck. So glad to see some Greven interaction there because I've never actually played against that card before and I assume that it's really good. But we win this one out, fortunately for us. So hopefully you all enjoyed this Atla Palani game. I'm Tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.